He's the popular Cris Collinsworth from NBC Sunday Night Football. This afternoon at 5:30 Eastern on NBCSN, Cris stars on the Pro Football Focus debut of grading the 2015 draft. So you got guys just sitting around and watching a whole lot of tape and giving you some strong opinions. Cris, could you look at enough tape to convince you Mariota is better than Winston?
I tried. I really did try. I actually started leaning that way a little bit, and then I just went back, and yesterday I said, okay, let me just – I just put on a bunch of tape, and with this Pro Football Focus system and the way it integrates into the tape, I can just watch him from behind, Mariota I'm talking about, and I watched him make probably 200 throws. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't talk myself into this is the second player off the board. I think he does so many things well. His mobility is obviously tremendous. His decision making, who he is as a person, all the intangibles. His release time, you'll see on the show, you know how we do on Sunday Night Football, where we measure the release times, which to me is one of the most important things, is better than Jameis Winston's, who is not particularly fast. But a little bit of arm strength issue for me with Mariota and a lot of accuracy issues. Mm-hmm. He'll make throws that you just kind of scratch your head about sometimes, and where they're just not tight, accurate throws. And because of their style of system, he gets a lot of wide open guys. I mean, they do, because everybody has to play man coverage against them and, take this free safety out of the middle of the field some, and he gets a lot of really easy throws out of that offense. And I'm still worried. I love the kid. I love everything about him. There's nothing I don't love about him as a person, a guy, and I hope he ends up being a superstar of superstars. But if I were the Tennessee Titans, I would be telling the world how much I loved him and trying to take the best offer that was available.
People almost fall in love with him like they did Tebow, that you like him. Plus, you like him even more because you put him next to Winston. But that's not reason enough to go up that high and grab somebody like this. Yeah,
it's not. And Jameis Winston's not a no-brainer either. I think that if you watch the show tonight, you'll see the release time is not on the upper end of NFL quarterbacks. And when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers and Tony Romo and some of the guys that are really quick release kind of guys, it makes a huge difference. I mean, think about the 40-yard dash. If you're a tenth of a second slower on your release, well, these guys can cover 3 or 4 or 5 yards in a tenth of a second, with the way these defensive backs can break on the ball. So to me, it's a really big deal. But he'll remind you when he plays of a Ben Roethlisberger. I think that's the ultimate upside for Jameis Winston. He's so big and strong, and he's not fast, but he has an escapability factor to him, and he's committed to the pocket. For me, there's still the number one way to win games in the National Football League anyway, is to sort of sit in the pocket and have 53 yards of width in the middle of the field and 60 yards of depth, which is the most amount of square footage that you can possibly have to cover. And the great quarterbacks that can beat you from the pocket, those are the guys that are committed to being in there. And Winston, I still feel like that he's so athletic that he is a guy that a first instinct is always going to be, I can outrun these guys, whereas Winston, I sort of get the feeling he's so committed to standing there and beating you from the pocket, and then if I have to sort of escape, I can escape, but he's really a pocket-first guy.
He's Cris Collinsworth from Sunday Night Football. It'll be Pro Football Focus grading the 2015 draft at 5:30 Eastern on NBCSN. I talked to Jesse Palmer about this, that we see these spread quarterbacks, they have a hard transition to go into the NFL, but also the wide receivers. Jesse was talking about that the receivers, because you're used to being able to get off the line of scrimmage, and the defenses aren't as intricate there. Are you looking at that? Because we got some big receivers though with Cooper and White, who are going to be top 10, top 5 picks. Do you see that transition being difficult for those two?
No, not for those two. And as a matter of fact, this is probably the best receiver draft I've ever seen. I mean, really, I'm not kidding you. I usually go through the first 2 to 3 rounds, and I try to, and then after that, I'm like, as soon as they make the team, I'll learn their name, kind of thing, And but this receiver class, I kept putting on tape of guys, and I'm going, that's a first-round guy. That's a first-round guy. That's a first-round guy. I got down to about 10 or 11. And I started laughing at myself because I know that many receivers aren't going in the first round of the draft, but there are some guys that are going to go in the second round that I'm telling you are as good as most of the top 15 pick kind of receivers, and they just can't take them all. And I think what a lot of teams are going to do with these receivers are say, I don't really care, so I'm going to take my offensive lineman or my pass rusher or my defensive lineman in the first round, because I know in the second round, there's no way they're going to get the 12 or 13 deep in this receiver class, and I'm still going to get a really good player in the second round.
What about running backs?
It's a very strange draft. I think wide receivers, pass rushers, offensive linemen, and quarterback. I would not go outside of those 4 categories in the first round. I just think that there are such good players. I don't particularly like this cornerback class. Landon Collins is a nice player at safety from Alabama, but I think he's kind of a strong safety. And if I'm going to spend first-round money, I want an Earl Thomas. I want somebody that can cover sideline to sideline and make all kinds of plays. But there are just so many top-end players, the Shane Rays and the Vic Beasleys and the Eli Harolds that can rush the passer. I think Dante Fowler is the best player in this draft. There's nothing this guy can't do. He's big. He can set the edge. He can rush the passer. I've seen him put his hand down and play defensive end. I saw him at nose tackle. He jumps around blocks. Nobody can cut block him. I just think he's a superstar in the making. But so many guys down the list that can get after the quarterback, offensive linemen that are good. I don't particularly like the tight ends in this class. Running backs, we'll see. Melvin Gordon's going to get a lot of attention. Todd Gurley is the guy that I love. But would I have the guts to pull the trigger on a guy coming off of ACL surgery in the first round? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I have quite that much courage. But there's a lot of depth to the running back position, so you're going to get quality in the second round as well. So my personal belief is that it's going to be a very strange draft. It's going to be very specific to a few positions, and there's going to be some positions not drafted at all. Now, there will be cornerbacks taken, like this Trey Waynes, for example. Trey Waynes out of Michigan State played bump and run his whole life up there. That's the way they do it at Michigan State. And I really like him as a player. When you first put him on, nobody can run by him. He runs 4.3 something. He's fast as lightning. But his transitions in and out of cuts is so unbelievably slow. And then we went back and looked at his shuttle run times, and they were pedestrian. He's got to be the first guy in the history of the Combine whose shuttle run time was slower than his 40-yard dash time. I mean, most of these guys are running 3.9 or 4.0 in the shuttle run, and he was like a 4.4 or 4.5. So his transitions in and out of the cuts scare me. Jalen Collins had the drug thing that came up just the other day. So I probably wouldn't touch a corner in the first round either.
I know you got to go, but it's amazing. You just said who the best player in the draft is, and he's not a wide receiver, running back, or quarterback, and he's not going to go number one, and you think he's got superstar written all over him. That, to me, is mind-boggling, that if you have that and you know that, but you're still going to somebody's going to roll the dice on these quarterbacks.
Yeah, they are, and then you've got this Leonard Williams sitting there as well. But there are some guys, Danny Shelton, wait till you see him play. He's going to be one of the most exciting players to come in the league in a long time. Jordan Phillips, Leonard Williams, I think, has been sort of trapped in a system out there where he was kind of having to play the run first. Maybe he's able to unleash my phrase has been free Leonard Williams, because I think he is going to be a nightmare coming after quarterbacks if they really let him go. So there's going to be some great, great players that people are going to really enjoy watching. come out of this draft. I'm just not positive it's going to be the two quarterbacks.
Thank you, bud. Have fun tonight.
Bye,
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
That's Cris Collinsworth, Football Night in America, Pro Football Focus, grading the 2015 draft, 5:30 Eastern on NBCSN.